Hello, and a big welcome to all of you out there who are listening and watching this podcast today. Today we have a guest, and you are Sam Harvey. A big welcome to you. It's so nice to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. And where are you from? Tell us a little about that.
Well, it depends on the time of year. So in the
Oh,
summertime, I am based on the Idaho-Canadian border in the US. And then in the winter, when it is cold and snowy and miserable, I move down to the Arizona-Mexico border. So for the last 25 years, I've been going back and forth. And when I move, I bring the horses, the dogs, the cats. So it's like the traveling circus. And in the winter time, I travel all over the world teaching and doing clinics and helping people with horse behavior problems. So it's a crazy life. Half the year I stay in one place and the other half it's kind of nomadic.
wow. But it seems like a dream life. You just move after the weather.
Yes, yes. It is much more fun to do horses in the warm than when you're
Yeah.
shoveling snow for many hours every day.
Not to talk about mud. I know that's
Yes,
big. That's
yes,
a big,
yes,
big problem in Sweden. Not in Hungary. I live in Hungary, but I'm from Sweden, and
yes,
they have a lot of mud in the
yes.
springtime.
We joke that you have either snow or mud season. It's like you get one or the other. So,
Yes, that's right. That's right. So many. How many horses do you have? You move all the animals. How many?
so it ranges. Many years I'm bringing clients' horses. So sometimes clients from down in the southern states or the Southwest will send horses to the north for the summer for training and education. Sometimes I'm bringing horses down for other people who are just looking for transport. And sometimes it's my own horses. So it ranges between 2 and 10 horses, depending on the year. Every season it's different.
Wow. So you are taking in other people's horses. Is it horses that are special or dangerous? Or tell us about it.
So, so again, I work with a variety of disciplines, and over the years, I have unintentionally become the person who many people go to after their regular horse training approaches quit working. So, behavioral issues, aggressive horses, dangerous horses, horses that have been rejected and sent to auction because they're unreasonable, someone rescues them, wants to give them a second chance. I also start young horses and give them their initial education. I help people who have adopted horses from the wild. So there's always a variety of the different horses I'm working with. And for me, it's fun because every year is different. So I have many clients who are interested in different disciplines, whether it's for fun or competition. And a lot of what people are starting to realize is the foundational education in their horse and themselves has been missed in a lot of mainstream approaches. And so it's kind of like when everything quits working, people become very open minded and they find someone like me. And we start at the beginning and we really have to fill in the holes in the horse's education. And so every horse is different depending on their previous experiences. So some horses will just come for a short time and owners come with their horse and then they all understand the same language and we send them on their way. Other horses are much more serious rehabilitation cases in the sense mentally, physically, emotionally, health wise. So it's always different. I don't have a preset program, which is why the horses I take back and forth, it depends every year. So it's always different.
Wow. But your work will not be different, I reckon. It will be the same procedure and the same thing you do with the horses.
Mhm.
How are you different from other people then when you can take all these uh, sad stories and
Yes.
make them good again?
Yes. Well, to give a little background just to help with the perspective, I started in the traditional world of 3-day eventing, dressage, jumpers, traveled all over the US, rode horses at the racetrack, got an education there in the world of racing, and wound up riding over in Europe. And I had this idea initially that the whole point of doing anything with horses was for an end result, was for showing in the competition or showing that you accomplished something. And there was really no actual consideration for the horse, which I know sounds funny because of all the interaction, but there was no awareness of how the horse's mind and emotions affected the physical behavior, how it affected the horse's health, and the breakdown of horses that we tend to normalize, unfortunately. Oh, well, that just happens. That's just part of it. And so, as I was riding under these upper level Olympians, I started seeing this tremendous amount of breakdown in horses and started associating there's stress going on, there's always chaos going on, the same horses keep getting hurt, and this just isn't really adding up. And so as I started asking questions, of course that was not accepted. That was not a positive thing, because it was questioning this is what you have to do in order to get the results we expect or we demand because of time limitations, financial expectations, right? All these things. So I made the decision to leave that world. For me, it did not make sense to keep working towards something that I really was starting to have problems with morally and ethically. And so as I left that world and I started to get exposed to other aspects of horses where people were using them for their livelihood, so a lot more in like ranch settings. And realizing there was a whole different relationship going on in those people because their life depended on the quality of their relationship with their horse and the success of moving livestock and handling livestock and low stress scenarios. And so I started to merge my classical kind of traditional background, where there was still many quality aspects to it, but with a much deeper understanding of the horse. And so over the years, I developed what's called alternative horsemanship, meaning it is an alternative to this severe, traditional, rigid way of doing things. But it is not what I call natural, which became a trend for many people, because it's really about the horse and the human learning a common language. And for many of these troubled problem horses, I mean, they call problem horses, they're really misunderstood. So much in our mainstream society and even the world that people say are natural horsemanship, there's still very little understanding or acknowledgement of learning how to address the horse's communication, how to recognize how the horse is offering communication that tells you, so you don't have to guess, you don't have to be hopeful, you don't have to wait and see what the horse is going to do. And so it's teaching the horse how to understand the human in a reasonable way without fear. That's a big one that I deal with. My goal is to reawaken the curiosity, which will replace the horse's fear. So they're willing and curious about participating. But really, the hardest part is educating the human to let go of many of these ideas of this is what it has to be like, or they see a video or they see a demonstration and in their mind they think they're understanding what they're seeing, and they really have no concept of understanding the horse, no foundational understanding of how their emotions, their thoughts, their energy, never mind the biomechanics of doing things, influence how the horse responds to them. So in what I do, it's not just about send me your horse, I'll fix it and send it home, which really isn't a real thing. It's an idea that's a convenience for humans, but it's not realistic for the horse. There are many horses that are sent to the trainer supposedly to be fixed, and the horse learns conditioned responses in that training program, maybe complies, maybe does enough, maybe makes some changes, but the owner has no idea. They have no idea what has been done, how it's been done, how to maintain what's been done. And so my real goal is educating people, because the more that people understand the horse, the more they can handle a variety of horses. It's not a set, with this horse, you have to act like this in order for it to work. With this horse, you have to, it's like if you understand a common language, you create a common language, you can interact with all of them. And so that's really kind of how what I do now has evolved over the years, is trying to educate people to be curious, just like the horses, and to be open to letting go of a lot of these deeply ingrained ideas that don't really help the horse relationship. It may initially seem like there's progress, but really it just creates, I'm going to say, more problems in the long run.
Mm. Yeah, I get you. And as you said, people they want the best for their horses, but they really don't understand sometimes. And
Hmm.
as you said, there's fear, both from human and horses. And if you do something with your horse and it's aggressive, you get this fear and you think that, wow, I have to sell this horse. I get another one because, yeah,
Yes, yes.
I think you
Hmm.
have seen that as well.
We have many here in the States. We have a big problem with the idea, the concept of, because horses are very expensive everywhere, but certainly here, and it's getting more expensive, is, well, I paid this much money and this is supposed to be my hobby and I need it to be emotionally fulfilling. That's really, I mean, people won't say that, but that's really what happens, right? We
Exactly.
feel like if we have this level of commitment, we should be getting something out of it. And I always laugh, when I tell people you wind up at that fork in the road where you have to decide, are you creating a partnership or are you creating a dictatorship? And in the dictatorship, even if you don't feel aggressive, you really aren't considering what the horse is experiencing. But when you create that partnership, it is a openness to the horse's communication and then finding the compromise of how to make something work together. And for the dictator scenarios, that is why we have so many horses sent to auction and so many horses that have a high turnover. It must be a bad horse. You look at one person who's gone through 7 or 8 horses in a very short period of time and has the same problem over and over. And, I always joke with people like, what's the common denominator here? Is if there's something going on in how you're interacting with them and you keep getting the same unwanted results, maybe it's not so much the horses. Maybe we need to look at our perspective or how we're doing things. So,
Mm.
but it can be challenging because the idea, the romanticized idea that Hollywood sells you of the horse and the experience and galloping across the field and your hair's blowing in the wind, and then the realities of learning this new language, of considering the constant changing of the mind and the emotions of the horse, of learning the mechanics. It is not at all this like relaxed, laid back experience that people think they're going to get in the interaction. So there's a lot of human emotions that come out, especially by the time they find someone like me. There's a lot of purging in the horse, there's a lot of purging in the people.
Mm. Yeah, I can imagine. And do you also find a problem? I have seen that people have maybe been riding on a riding school for 2, 3 years, and they think now I'm ready for my own horse.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, please.
yeah, yeah. So I think again, this really I find often comes back to one's education outside of the horse world. So I think it's very interesting because I work with people from all over the world. I do remote coaching and I do in-person clinics all over. So it's interesting when you see how someone has been taught traditionally in education and a school system of, here's the pattern, here's the routine, here's the rigidity, here's the memorization, and then you produce the results. And with many horse training programs, again, out of time and convenience and making the customer feel like they're getting something, in a riding school, they create that. Here is the pattern. Here is how we do things. Here is where we catch the horse, tack up the horse. Here's how we get on. There's very rigid rules. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. And so if you stick within that pattern, it may seem like you have a degree of success and the illusion of, I'm ready to be a horse owner. The problem is when you get a horse that has not been exposed to that routine and pattern, and you try and implement what you have learned previously, and it doesn't work, now what? And the other part that people don't recognize, especially in where, because like many times I'll get called into riding programs to help troubled horses that no longer are working for the program. And people say, what happened? And there's many things that go into being a lesson horse and many issues that lesson horses have, but because there's a pattern, it seems like there's compliance. But the day the pattern changes, the day that the new student does something different, you all of a sudden get this monster horse or this reactive horse, or we've never seen him do that before. And yet it was really in there the whole time. But because the horse learned to comply with the pattern, it seemed like he was willing. So, on one hand, yes, I encourage students to go and take lessons and learn because there's a certain amount of learning balance and coordination. And, it's about you. But there also, I think, needs to be a greater education on helping people understand that even if you've had a degree of success in a lesson or whatever sort of standard program, there is so much more that is going to influence when it's just you and your horse, when it's only you handling your horse, when you are maybe at a different facility where there's a lot of stimulus, and other borders or other events happening or things that, different than staying in the indoor school where you don't see anything going on and everybody's quiet and well behaved and follows the rules. So I think it can be a very hard, difficult reality check for many people. Again, I did my time, I spent my money, I took my lessons, I found the horse, it seems great. And then all of a sudden, they're spending 90% of their time just trying to handle the horse on the ground because things are different, or maybe the horse isn't what he was supposed to be. Again, a lot of horses are sold as one thing because they've been in a program and they seem fine. And then they get to the new owner and they're in a new location and there's new stimulus and things are being done differently. And it shows, just like the lesson horses, that horse can't function because he hasn't really learned the skills. So I think there's a lot of challenges that people unfortunately can face that they had no idea and they were not prepared for.
Mm. What I also see is that people are very impatient
Yes,
when they buy a new horse. Oh
yes,
well, he has been here for a whole week, and I thought I could, you know.
yes, yes. And I think there's things too that, granted, when you pay for a lesson in a riding school, there's only so much time. There's only so much they can teach you. And I empathize with that.
Yeah.
But I think there should be also a mandatory side to things of these are behaviors that, or these are instances that influence the horse's behavior. Like, what is he eating? How much is he sleeping? How much herd socialization is there? How much freedom of movement does he get when the human isn't controlling it?
Mm.
That
Yeah.
people have no idea. They don't realize that so much of that. I mean, one of the big ones that I talk about a lot is sleep deprivation. So many people do not realize how many horses are living in a constant anticipative state to where they're not lying down and reaching REM sleep. And so you get these dysfunctional, neurotic, people put all these terms to them, but it's really, if you take a human and you're sleep deprived, you can't
Mm.
function. So you
Well,
take a horse and they're sleep deprived, they can't learn, they can't think, they can't be reasonable. And yet people are stuck on the behavior rather than going, what is contributing? That the
mm.
behavior is the outcome. It's not the issue. What is happening that is creating, or what isn't happening that is creating this? And when you become a horse owner, I think these are things you learn the hard way, where, or maybe if you learn them at all, because many times people will think I have a behavior problem. So they seek out help for a behavior problem. And many professionals only look at the behavior. They don't,
Yeah.
even though they're a professional, they have no recognition of the whole picture. And that is incredibly challenging,
Mm.
because like I will deal with clients who go, but I talked to the vet, I talked to the farrier, I talked to the saddle fitter, and I'm standing there looking at the horse going, your horse is telling me, your horse is showing that these are issues. It doesn't matter that these other professionals are giving you an opinion. If they're not understanding the horse's communication, there's a gap in here. And then
Mm.
we have issues. So,
Yeah, you're so right. So you are all over the world, as you said. That sounds great. You're in Europe as well?
yeah, I'll actually be coming there in the fall. So what originally happened is I was based in the US and then I would go and do a few clinics and people would say, this is great, but like, how do I keep getting support? And that's where I call it the remote horse coach. So my online, my virtual, my video coaching picked up as sort of a support branch for current clients. And then that has evolved with technology and over the years into people finding me through videos or different things online and going, this is really different. There's something going on that's not the same. I don't understand it, but there's something happening here. And so I wind up now going in different places, South America, Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, South Pacific, all over, working with a variety of people, variety of horses. Every scenario is different. And really the goal is to try and help people start to better understand the horse. And then through online opportunities, I can continue the support. So it's every season is different. Again, just like with the horse training, every year I go to different places. So it kind of depends on who has signed up, and that's where I wind up going. So yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. You must come around a lot and yeah, it's an adventure.
Yes, it's a lot of coordinating, but the thing that's interesting is I can be working, deep in a remote place in South America and then be working somewhere in Thailand and with ex race horses from Hong Kong and all these different things, and it doesn't really matter what the horse has been exposed to. They all speak horse, and it's
Mm,
very fun for me to help share this universal language of having people who really are interested in learning, who are very committed to creating that partnership and watching I'm going to say, success for the human and the horse. There are many people I find who, this is what I have done. For me, the joy and the fun is watching other people become successful
mm,
in taking away the mystery and taking away the fear. And, it's funny because every day I get videos or updates or whatever through, my phone and different things. And so people will send me a video. Look at my horse yawning. Look at my horse lying down. Look at, things that mainstream society would put absolutely no value to. But when you look at the journey where many of these people have come from with their horses and the time and the commitment, when there's an appreciation for what the horse is now able to experience in a
mm.
more confident, in a more settled, in a more reasonable way, for me, that is so exciting to see, and it's a big motivation of wanting to keep helping people despite so much of the mainstream perspective, attitude, way of doing things. And I just have to put on blinders and go, okay, I'm not going to look at that. There are people who want to help, who are committed. Let me
Yeah.
focus on that.
And just
So
think about how many horses you are
yeah,
helping. I mean,
yeah.
when the people who have the horses understand them and they don't say, "Wow, I can't do this anymore," and
Hmm.
the horse had to go away, they go to a new owner, and there is also a fight, and you
Hmm.
never know where the horses is ending up when the owner don't understand them.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So, how can people get in touch with you? You also have online and yeah.
Yes. So the easiest for people who are from afar, the website is remotehorsecoach.com. And that has all of my links. It even has links to in-person things. So if people start learning online and then they go, wow, I'd like to do something in person, there's links for that. There's links. I have a video catalog. So I have over 200 teaching videos. A lot of them are talking about horse behavior, horse health, how we're doing things. There's live streams that I post on there every month. There's all kinds of stuff. So footage is being updated continuously. On that website, there's also a link to my blog. If you like reading things, there's over, I think last I saw, 1,400 articles that I've posted
Oh,
on horse behavior. Yeah, a lot of writing. A lot of writing.
wow.
So if people like to read things, so there's a variety of learning opportunities, kind of depending on one's time, effort, energy, budget. There's also one-on-one coaching. And so sometimes what I have is people will just want a consult. They're like, I don't really know about this remote thing, but I'm having this issue. So we can do a consult. Other people, it's an ongoing, we'll say, mentorship. And so we do video coaching, or we do just speaking on the phone, depending on location, internet access, that sort of thing. So everything is adapted to the individual scenario. And I find, again, as with most things, we kind of start off with an idea saying, okay, well, maybe something isn't quite what I would like, or I know there's an issue, but I don't really know what it is. And then by discussing and sort of sharing insight, and then there's support with the videos, people start to go, oh, wait a minute, I think there's a lot more. And we peel back the layers and peel back the layers. And then, things can evolve and people can adapt how they're learning, what they're doing. And a big thing about my teaching is trying to teach people to have the skills to not be constantly dependent on the instructor. I find a lot of the ways that many mainstream people teach, it's like the student becomes dysfunctional unless they are told every step of the way what to
Mm.
do. And so I try and prioritize how to help people learn how to see and understand and make their own decisions. And that builds their confidence, which then improves the timing of their communication, the effectiveness, the relevancy, all these different things. So again, everything I have, I really am against the like one size fits all in teaching and coaching and so on. So it's all pretty much adapted. But again, there's the general, you can go on the video catalog, there's free Facebook coaching group that sometimes people want to start off on to kind of get an idea of things and then they go from there.
Wow, you have been very active.
Yes. Things I never thought I would be doing when I said, yeah, okay, I'll be a horse trainer. Never
Mm.
thought I'd be doing any of this.
No, and going on the internet is also one thing I have experienced. Horse people mostly we are with the horses, not online, but you have to do that
Yes.
today. Mm.
Yes. And it's interesting because, I will post a variety of videos because you never know who's watching what. You don't know their current perspective, you don't know their background. And so sometimes there will be a video that I will think, okay, well, this is interesting and it's a little, and so many people will react to it. And then there's a video where I go, oh, wow, this is really good content. And there's like no response to it. So
Mm.
I always have to remind myself that depending on where someone is in their journey, sometimes they can't appreciate the value of something you're sharing that you understand through experience. Like this is the important aspect, but maybe the public isn't really in that mindset yet to understand. And so I think that's one of the challenges because a lot of the video content shared online, I find is like, it is supposed to look like this. And so people like demonstrate something, a professional will demonstrate, and then people at home watch it and go, well, let me go try it with my horse. And then they get into trouble and they have all kinds of issues because
Yes.
they don't know what they're not seeing. They don't understand what went into preparing the horse for the outcome. And
Uh,
maybe the example of what they're seeing really isn't what they should be doing with their horse. But all of those things aren't really talked about. So the good news with the online ability to share videos, to talk about things, is it's like sometimes you can trigger something in someone where they go, oh, my horse looks like that, or I can relate to that. So again, they didn't really know what the problem was, or they didn't even maybe think it was a problem. Maybe it looks normal because everybody else's horse does it. But when they can see it in a short little glimpse and go, oh, there's something more going on, again, it piques that curiosity. And that's where I find a lot of people who are new will reach out. I saw something and I'm not even really sure what it was, but I can relate to that. I want to find out more. And then, things evolve from there. So it's interesting. There was years ago when I started the virtual coaching way before the pandemic. I mean, it was 2014. So technology was different and all that. How can you teach people if you're not in person? And I'm like, well, very easily. But for the student, mindset, it was still very foreign. Now
yeah.
people have become much more open-minded to realizing they can learn a lot, even if we're not standing right there in person.
Yeah, you can, and you can help them a lot when you get to know the people as well. I have found out I have also students online, and you
Mhm.
talk to them. How are you approaching your horse? What are you doing? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just doing like this, and then you say,
Yes.
okay, we have to turn
Yes.
this around. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think too, this is an interesting one, okay, especially here in the US, but many Western cultures, time is money. And
Yeah.
people are always feeling this urgency of, I have to pack in as much as possible in order for it to be worth it. And
Mm.
I find with the remote coaching, the video coaching, we have the ability to slow things down. It's like giving the student permission to say, take a breath, let's break it
Mm.
down, let's really think about it. And you can find the holes in their understanding or assumptions they have or whatever they have going on. And it's almost like this relief that people don't realize they need to be given permission. It's okay to slow down because we're so ingrained of like, I got to this, I got to this, I got to, and they don't
Mm.
realize that feeling is going to their horse and the horse is going, what are we doing? So I think it's a great opportunity for people to learn almost at a higher level because they are forced to slow down. They can't just rush through things. And then it starts to sort of retrain the mindset so that even if we're not right there, when they go back out with their horse, it's like those little, oh yeah, take a breath. Oh yeah, slow down. Oh yeah, we're just right here for the moment. And that, I mean, I've had many people from all over talk about that they didn't even realize because they didn't think they were hurrying through things. They didn't feel like they were rushing, but it's so ingrained in our society that we just carries over to the horses. And so we have to be intentional to make a switch in that, like, we're just right here in this moment. Okay, let's reassess. And that helps a lot, in their understanding and their perspective, in checking in with the horse and recognizing things. So,
Yeah, and you get more focus on yourself than on the
mhm,
horse. As you said, in,
mhm.
in old time learning, it's always about the horse, what the
Yes,
horse should perform.
yes.
But we forget ourselves. We forget our
Mhm.
movements, our approach to the horse and everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. One of the funniest things, the joke for many of my students is we talk about breathing, which
Yeah.
sounds funny, but so many people do not realize, even with not feeling fear, but just in focusing and like learning new ideas or concepts, they will carry a tension in them because they are not breathing consistently. And then when we really delve in and go in, how does that affect your aids, your literal physical communication with the horse? If you are not breathing and you are tight, are your aids, whether you're on the ground or in the saddle, how will that affect the horse's responses to you? And so many times I will say things if we are in person and make a joke or something on purpose. And you'll hear the person laugh and they will audibly exhale, and inevitably, immediately, the horse blows their nose or takes a sigh. And they
Hmm.
look down, and it's like that moment where they go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much this mattered because superficially we're thinking, yeah, I'm breathing. What? So what? It's not a big deal. And not realizing the level of sensitivity that these horses have to how we are carrying ourselves, what we aren't doing, whether it's intentional or not. And people, I think it helps people start to have an appreciation to realize like it matters. The little moments matter, and that it can have such a big effect on the horse in a positive or negative way, depending on what we're bringing. And I think those are the moments that really reinforce to people like, okay, this is taking the time, slowing down, being present. It really matters. There is a reason why we're doing this. It's not just for the sake of going super slow and doing something. Like that there is value to the horse by offering this sort of interaction.
Mm. Yeah, that's words,
Mhm.
really. Yeah. So, but you are just going to carry on with your work. What is your next step? Where are you going now?
So the spring is coming, right? Well, supposedly spring is coming.
Mm.
So in a couple of weeks, I will be making the 1,400-mile drive back to the north and reopen the farm. And then in the fall, looking to head over to Europe. So right now, still booking, although lots of things are changing in the world right now. So we kind of have to take that into account.
Yes.
But I'm always looking at adding new locations, new places, and remote coaching students and that sort of thing, because it's kind of like I can navigate all over. So the more opportunities we have set up, then the more options and going from there. So that's the next plan.
What are you doing with your horses when you are away? Do you have help for that?
So yes, so there when I come in the winter time, there are caretakers who will watch them.
Mm.
And again, most of the horses that I'm moving or transporting or so on are not my personal horses. So
Oh.
my time is limited and so on. And so I've really decreased that. So it's really clients' horses, I'll say redistributing them, sending them home. And so I don't really have much upkeep like that. But when I go to the north, it's more the time and effort on the property and taking care of things while doing all of these other, activities and so on. So yeah, it's not a lifestyle for the faint of heart.
Well, but I think you like it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yep, yep.
Yeah,
Right.
it's really fantastic to listen to this. But and what made you changed your mind about this competition and you just no, I don't want this anymore. What came to you?
The So I was riding under two Olympians, and they were at the top of their game and from Europe and Australia, but based in Europe. And so different perspectives. And the amount of stress, I don't just mean like challenge of competition. I mean the amount of daily stress of we have to perform or we have to get these results in order to qualify for blah blah blah, whatever, big competitions. And that became such a focal point, and we have to produce results for the owners, the sponsors, right? We have to show up, that the horse was not considered to the degree in which there were so many, I'm going to say, violent approaches that were implemented behind the scenes in order to create those results.
Mm,
And yet you could read the magazine articles that told you a totally different story. Oh,
mm,
well, this is how we train, and this is what we do, and this is what we're looking for. And the reality of what was happening behind closed doors was completely different, was completely opposite. And to
wow.
see so many horses from all over the world, and this wasn't a unique situation. I mean, there were other people who were riding other under other big names. I mean, this was not like a one-time thing where we
Mm,
would all be talking and going, yeah, well, that's just how they normalize it.
mm,
And so this, I'm going to say, pandemic of this approach of this is what it takes in order to make it at the top. And looking at these horses who, despite, I'm going to say, the mental and physical abuse, so even though there was so much money spent on trying to take care of them, there was still abuse, if that makes sense. If the
mm,
training abuse, the tactics, I mean, taking a horse out in the cold winter at 7 o'clock at night and riding it for 3 hours until it's dripping sweat and foaming and shaking because you're going to teach it a lesson, and we're out walking the horse till midnight so it doesn't tie up or have other health issues. That type of concept. At some point, you go, this isn't okay. And so I started looking around, and all I saw was very similar
mm,
mentality. And so for me, these horses that were still willing, despite the violence, despite the craziness of what they were being asked to do, that they were still willing to try, that they were still willing to, I'm going to say, participate, was just
mm,
mind blowing to me. It was just like, this can't be right. I cannot live with this morals and ethics and justification for this end result that's completely human ego. There is no other reason for it. And so people will ask me now, they'll say, so are you anti competition? Not at all. Create a wonderful relationship, a quality partnership with your horse, and then go compete. Go
mm,
for it.
mm,
But when your priority is to first create the partnership where you are acknowledging the horse and you're learning to work with him, the competition is not then this trigger. It's not this dramatic, chaotic, surviving the experience type of thing that so many people make it out to be. So, that was really my catalyst. I always say what I do now is redemption for what I, saw back then, is really this, how do I counter this justification? And the problem is it creates a generational toxicity. You have the older horse trainers or riders or competitors who tell you this is what it takes. So you get the next generation who says this is what and it
yeah.
just goes on and on and on. And, if I can break that cycle with the few that I encounter on my journey, then, great. And what's interesting too is, when people like meet me on a plane, they know nothing about horses. They're like, so you're a human psychologist too? And it's like, well, not officially, but many people who come to me have had, not to the degree that I did, but had exposure to the toxicity that many traditional riding instructors impose on their human students, never mind the horse, but on the human student. The
Mm.
derogatory teaching style, the judgment, the critique, the gaslighting, all of these things that we all justified. You have to be tough enough to survive the program, and then you're going to make it. You have to prove yourself that you can last getting the berating from the instructor and that you can still do it was like, where did this come from? Like, we don't need to have that. And so there are many students who come who it's like they didn't even realize they were carrying leftover
Mm.
emotions
Yeah.
from those sort of experiences, and then they start to learn in a safe environment where we can talk, we can discuss, they can be open, I'm not going to be judgmental. And that's where the emotions start flooding out, because they start thinking back to things that they were coerced into doing because they didn't want to upset the instructor. And yet it's the horse who paid the price, right? Because
Yeah.
they're being told, treat the horse this way or respond or critique or whatever. So there's a lot of that too that people don't realize is part of their learning journey and letting go of and healing from to better help the horses they now have in front of them.
Mm.
So, you know, there's a lot. It's again, never thought I would be addressing any of this and thinking I'm helping horses in the future, but the more that you hear and see stories over and over and over again from all over the world, I mean, it's like we have to address this. This isn't, we need to help people be able to recognize that yes, it happened, but now we are here, now you are
Yeah.
learning, and we can evolve and grow from it.
Mm. It's so right. So right. Yeah. I'm very happy that I met you because we share the same thoughts all over. Yeah. So, are there anything you want to say to the audience before we wrap it up?
Well, I think kind of on that note, sometimes people get stuck. Like they know that what they've been doing or how they've been doing hasn't been working, but it's almost can be overwhelming to think of trying something new or trying something different. And, I try and remind people this is a learning journey. This is not a destination. This is not like, let's get to the end goal and then you've arrived, which is how things are sold in the horse world, right? Do this
Mm.
much and you will now know enough. It doesn't work like that. And if we think of it more, I often talk about semantics, the way we say things, how we think about things, that these are opportunities. These are opportunities to learn to understand your horse. There are opportunities to learn to work with your horse. And that when your mindset shifts, instead of saying, oh, I have to take the horse out to turn him out and do whatever, and he might do that, it's an opportunity to slow down, to break things down. It really can change one's perspective to not feel overwhelmed, to start to consider maybe how they do things, how they work with the horse, that they can do it in little segments. They don't have to fix everything all at once, that they can
Mm.
start and experiment. That's another word I like to use. Let's experiment. There's no pressure. You can try something different. If it doesn't work, that's okay. Let it go. We can try
Mhm.
something different. And it's a unpacking of this, again, ingrained mindset that many people have had, and that the more that just their thoughts shifting to that place, even if they haven't found the person to help them or to change whatever they're doing, it starts to change the dynamic in the relationship with their horse. And that you will see immediately from the horse's feedback that they start interacting differently, even if you don't really understand why, even if you don't really have the skill set, that your intention changes everything in that partnership.
Yeah, and as you said, be curious, try things, and don't be nervous about it. And yeah, many people are afraid to do something wrong, but
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
if you try it in the good way, you will
mm-hmm,
find a way to do
mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, thank you so much for coming here today. It really has been a pleasure. And I hope all of you out there got something here and will contact Sam in the future if you have any problems. And yeah, thank you so
Well,
much for coming.
thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, all of you who have been watching this or listening. And please subscribe because it helps me to talk to a lot of people around the world. So thank you so much for today and see you later.